So welcome back everyone, Mike here. It is day 2 of the Pennsylvania rifle season. We got some snow overnight, much better conditions than it was yesterday. I mean, it's a little windy here today, but yesterday it was a mess being out here. I mean, it rained hard till about noon, and then we got some real heavy winds, and it was just kind of a nasty day. But today the deer are all just kind of hunkered down a little bit, so we're not really sitting. We're just kind of still hunting. You walk a little bit, stand for a little bit, walk a little bit. And I've only been out for about an hour and already saw some deer. So I think this is the right method for today. But anyway, I'm going to keep at it here for a little bit. And then we're going to talk today about posting your property, trespassers, and all those sorts of things. It can be challenging and difficult to handle that at times. But over the years, I've learned a few things. And but we'll go over that in a little bit. Thanks. So no deer yet, but that's okay. We had a good time this morning. We spent all morning just kind of hiking around the property. You know, it's more like rabbit hunting than deer hunting. The deer are hanging so tight. We saw a bunch of doe, and you would literally walk to within 10 yards of them. They'd be hunkered down in there next to some multiflora rows. You couldn't even see them. Next thing you know, they bounce up and they're gone. But we saw all doe so far today. And here in Pennsylvania, in our area, I don't think you can shoot doe until Saturday, something like that. So it's buck only right now. And we have antler restrictions here. They have to have 3 points up on one side. So you kind of got to look for that as well. So you need a good standing shot, you know what I mean, and deer to turn so you can count points. There's a few out here that I'm after. Some of the smaller ones, you don't even really spend a lot of time trying to count points because the chances are it might not be a legal deer and you don't want to risk shooting an illegal buck. But anyway, today's video, we're going to talk about posting your property. Now, before I get started, I'm curious to know, everyone watching this video, if you own land, do you post it? And if so, why? Please comment below and let me know. What we do here, I started posting the property pretty seriously about 4 or 5 years ago. I never really wanted to do that. You try to be neighborly, and it just never works out, you know? Like, if you watch my videos, you know that I'm always out in the woods doing something, whether it be cutting firewood or building trails, or I'm just always out there. And you know what? Year round, you don't see another person, not once, till deer season. And here they come. Now, we don't have problems around here so much with, you know, people from 10, 15 miles away just pulling over on the side of the road and hunting. Where I always had my biggest problem was with people that may live down the road or on another road over, and you know them, you know them, you're nice to them and polite to them, and you know, you wave and you might talk every once in a while, but they're not really your close friends. And for years I really didn't mind them hunting, and but it just kind of kept getting worse and worse, you know. There'd be one guy, you know, just because he kind of lived in the area, he never really said anything. And then come late archery season one year, or muzzleloader season, I'm going out in the woods to cut firewood. I see someone in one of my tree stands, you know what I mean? I'm like, who are you? I didn't even recognize the guy. Oh, I'm friends with such and such, you know what I mean? And he's the other guy that lives down the road. And it just never works out, you know what I mean? Because one guy always leads to his buddy, then his buddy's buddy. And it's just not the way I want to do things. I'd have to say it's one of the downsides to owning property is you have to make that decision. If you're going to let people hunt on your property, You know, you can do it that way, or if you just want it to be your friends and family, you're going to have to post it and you're going to have to enforce it. And sometimes people's feelings are going to get hurt, and that's just the way it is. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. And, you know, for years I'm trying to defend my position to people, you know, why I post a property. Hey, you know, I got some buddies with their little kids out here. I don't want people walking through here. And you know what? You don't have to explain yourself at all. You're the one that pays the property taxes. You're the one that paid for it. You know, out here, I'm building food plots. I'm doing all kind of stuff. And I know they are not my deer. I mean, they're nobody's deer. I guess they're the game commission's deer or whatever. But it is your property. So you have the say of whether you want to post it or not. I chose about 5 years ago to post our property. And the deciding factor for me was, I mean, every year I could tell you stories. Almost every year we have an issue with people. Last year, first day of deer season, my buddy, I got him in a tree stand over by the orchard. First day of deer season. We have rifles out here. You know, this isn't archery season. And he's in his tree stand. He calls me on the phone. He says, hey, some guy just came walking into the orchard, looped around below me, and he's walking through the pines behind your mom's house right now. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, because we have a system here. You know, not only is it an inconvenience, it's a safety thing. You know, we like to know where everybody's at, and we have a plan in place. We have a system. Nobody moves from their spot unless you're putting on little drives, and everybody knows where each other person is, and that's the way to do it. So you don't need someone just kind of walking in the middle of the movie. But anyway, he calls me, tells me this guy's, you know, walking through the pines behind my mom's place. I drive over there in the Ranger. Sure enough, I catch him right on the trail. And he, you know, guy's an older guy. I got to give him credit. I mean, he was out there getting it, you know. He's trying to push out the pines over towards the neighbor's property. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know, and he says, I'm driving these pines out. And I said, well, you know, you're trespassing, right? And he's like, well, I know what I'm doing. I said, yeah, I know what you're doing. You're trespassing. And so he goes on to tell me that he knows the neighbor. And, you know, he thought it was just okay to do that. And, you know, I was nice to the guy, but I made it very clear that I didn't want him hunting on our property. It happens all the time. Now, the worst story of all, I didn't even want to share this story. The story of the piebald buck. Let me tell you this one. I shouldn't even tell you this story, to tell you the truth. I will, though. So, a couple years ago, I had this piebald buck around here. And he was around for 3 years. I saw him when he was a little one. Year 2, he was a little 5-point. And he had some real nice coloring on his face. Year 3, he was a real nice 8-point. Not huge, but 15, 16 inches, something like that. You know, spread. Nice buck. And we had all seen him. Every neighbor saw him. I mean, we all saw the thing all the time. And I probably wasn't even going to shoot the deer, to tell you the truth. If I saw it, it was just kind of nice to see him around. So one day I'm at work, and I get a text message from a neighbor. And he lives down the road. The guy owns 1 acre of property. I've never seen him out there helping me build a food plot. Never saw him filling my deer feeders in the summer when you're allowed to feed. Never saw him help me clear trails. Nothing, right? Guy's got 1 acre. The only time he ever enters the woods is in deer season. And he just looks, there's property, I'm going to go hunt there. So anyway, I get a text message from this guy, and he says that his tree stand is in bad shape because he didn't do anything with it. So he wanted to hunt in one of my stands down by the pond. And I said, no. I texted him back, said, no, we're not letting anybody else hunt on the property this year. Just like that. You don't have to explain yourself, right? So I get home from work that day, and it was late, maybe 20 minutes, half hour before dark. And I thought, you know, I'm going to go check some trail cameras. So I hop in the side-by-side. I'm heading down the hill to the pond. And right standing on the middle of the path is that piebald buck. And I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He's standing there looking at me. Well, he goes over to the right. I get out of the Ranger, and I had my crossbow with me, and I had a decent shot, and I'm like, I just didn't feel like hunting. You know what I mean? I mean, I just get out of the Ranger, pulled up to him, and I just watched him for a little bit, and I get back in the Ranger, and I go up on the other hill to pull a memory card of a trail camera. Well, I get up there, and it's not 2 minutes, and I get a phone call from this guy, the guy that asked to hunt down by the pond. And he says, hey, I got a buck. Can you come help me drag it? I'm like, yeah, I'll come down, you know. So I'm thinking he's hunting right off of his corner of his 1 acre piece of property, right? So I drive down there. It's that piebald buck that I had just seen 15 minutes before that. And he didn't even realize what he shot. And I'm looking at this thing, And he goes, yeah, look at its face, it's all weird. I said, yeah, it's that piebald. Everyone's been seeing them around here. And the deer was laying dead on our property. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought, you know, maybe he shot it up on his place or something and it ran down there. Whatever, that's fine, you know. So I said to him, I said, where were you standing at when you shot it? And he's like, right up there. And I said, where? And he showed me. And I said, that's on our property. He says, well, it's right near the line. And I said, well, where was the deer at? And he says, just right over here. And I said, that's clearly on my property. You know what I mean? And he kind of got defensive about it, and he didn't want to hear it. And I said, you know, I told you I didn't want anyone else hunting here. And he said, I thought you just meant outsiders. And I'm like, what is an outsider? I said, do you mean people that, you know, don't help me build food plots and aren't out here working and don't pay my property taxes for me? Those outsiders? Because you kind of fall into that category, you know? So he got a little bit, you know, he's getting a little defensive, and things calmed down a little bit. And I said, you know what, I'm going to help you drag this deer up to your house. I didn't want the guy to have a blast of the ticker or something, you know, that would have been a bad way to end the day. Dragged the deer up to his house, and I said, we need to have a talk, you know. And I won't go into all the details of that talk, but I will just say this. I made it very, very clear that I don't want him hunting on our property ever again. And I hated that it had to come to a conversation like that. But sometimes people just don't get it. You know what I mean? And it really bothered me because he turned me into a person that I didn't want to be. I don't want to be that guy chewing somebody out. You know what I mean? But sometimes they just leave you no choice. And the other thing is, when you deal with situations like that, you know, you have to remain calm and you know, like a professional and be decent to people. But you also have to get your point across because some people don't understand it any other way. The biggest problem that I find around here, like I said, it's just people see woods and they just think no one's going to mind. You know, I don't think they're really trying to get one over on you or anything like that. But I just don't enjoy it. So over the last couple years, I have posted the property, and I have been very clear to people what, you know, our intentions are and what we expect. Now, if somebody were to come to me and be like, hey, if you ever need any help on the property, you know, I'd like to bring my son out here hunting or something like that, I would probably decline his offer to help, but I would let him come hunt. Nobody ever offers. It's just people don't want to put in the work. You know what I mean? And, excuse me, no matter what you do in life, you got to put in the work. And I just don't think it's right for people just to expect you to allow, you know, you hardly even know them, just to come hunt on your property. So I could go on, and I know this video is starting to run kind of long, but we have run into issues for years about people, and it's always the same situation pretty much. I mean, you might know the person, not know them real well, or it's someone who knows a person that you might know, things like that. And but like I said, sometimes feelings are going to get hurt. They are, you know, and that's up to them. But you have to be polite, post your property, you know, if that's what you want to do. And if you don't care if people hunt on your property, I still would suggest that you set some guidelines. You know, what seasons are you going to hunt? Where are you going to be hunting at? Is it only going to be you? You know, clear all that stuff up initially, or you'll have problems later on. Because when you let one person, next year he brings his buddy. Next year there's 3 or 4 of them. You know what I mean? So if you're okay with people hunting on your property, maybe you don't hunt, you never even go out in your woods or anything, sure, let people hunt. But I really enjoy it out here, and I hate to be that guy. I really do. I don't like, you know, disappointing people and telling them they can't hunt on my property. But you also have to put your foot down at times and kind of draw that line in the sand. If I didn't enjoy this, you know, we'd live in a townhouse somewhere. You know what I mean? But this is our life. This is what I do. I love these woods behind me, and I spend as much time as possible in those woods doing something. And so that's why I post our property. For years we didn't, and it just did not work out at all. I mean, you would catch, you know, 15-year-old kids walking through the woods towards your house with 30-30s, you know, and you'd say, "What? You know where you're at?" "No, we're pushing these woods out." "You know where my house is?" "No." I'm like, "It's right in front of you, about 200 yards. They didn't even know where they're at. So I'm not going to deal with that kind of stuff. So over the last few years, I think I have finally gotten the word out. You know what I mean? That I'm serious And I mean business when it comes to posting a property. Like I said, if anyone wants to, you know, come help do some things or whatever, I'll probably decline to help because I like doing things myself. They might, you know, I might consider letting them hunt on the property. But just think you're going to walk into someone else's woods, not going to fly anymore. But that's really all I have to say on posting my property. It's just something that I didn't, you know, I wish I didn't have to do it, but people give you no choice. So like I said, in the comments below, please let me know, you know, your situation. Do you post your property? If so, why? And if you don't, why not? I'll be curious to hear from those people as well. But anyway, it's getting late here. I got about another hour and a half before dark. I'm going to go for another walk. I'll tell you what, we put some miles on today, so I will sleep good tonight. But anyway, like I always say, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like button, click subscribe, and share them with your friends. Thanks. I forgot something I need to tell you. So, you know, I told you the story about the piebald buck. The story gets a little bit better. So after I kind of laid into this guy and got my point, you know, made it very clear that I didn't want him hunting on our property, he apologized, it'll never happen again, all that, blah, blah, blah. So about a month later, somebody sends me a link on my phone, a friend of mine, and it's a story from a Pittsburgh newspaper. And some guy writes a story about this great hunter that killed this elusive piebald buck that no one had ever seen before. And it goes on to tell about this guy that shot this piebald buck and, you know, how he took his vacation days and planned around it and hunted this thing during the rut. He is literally the only guy that had never seen it before. I mean, everybody in the neighborhood's seen it. This article went on to say how no one ever even got a trail camera picture of it. I have hundreds of pictures of it, along with all the neighbors. The thing would just walk through your yard, and people saw it all the time. So I actually contacted the author of that story and kind of gave him, you know, the old Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. He didn't really seem to care. You know, he said, oh, that's unfortunate. He emailed me back. But I learned two things that day, right? One, when you tell somebody they can't hunt on your property, you have to be very, very, very clear about it. And two, you can't believe everything you read in the newspaper.